Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Gopi Janna Vallabha Giribharadhari. Jaya Gopi Janna Vallabha Giribharadhari. Jashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Jashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Banachari. Jamuna Tira Banachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajacharya Ashtotara Shata Shishimad, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajacharya Ashtotara Shata Shishimad, His Divine Grace Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki. Grantaraj Shimam Bhagavatam ki. Nitai Gaura Premanandi. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to Shishiguru and Shigoranga. Reading from Shrimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, the Summon Bonum, Chapter 75, entitled Duryodhan Humiliated, text number 14 and 15. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Swalankrita naro naryo Gandashak Bhushanam Bharai Bilim Pantyo Vishinchantyo Bijarur Bividai Rasai Swalankrita Naranaryo Gandhashak Bhushanam Bharai Bilim Pantyo Vishinchantyo Bijarur Bividai Rasai Swalankrita Naranaryo गन्धाशक्भूषणं भराय विलिम्पन्त्यो विषिञ्चन्त्यो विजारुर्विविधैर्रसैः. Please chant. Swalankritta nara naryo ganda shakbhushanam bharai bilimpantyo vishinchantyo bijarur vividai rasai. Swalankarita nara naryo ganda shakbhushanam bharai bilimpantyo vishinchantyo bijahur vividhai rasai. Swalankrita nara naryo ganda shabhushanam bharai bilimpantyo vishinchantyo bijarur vividai rasai. Just appreciating the meter and the poetry in Sanskrit. Swalankrita nara naryo ganda shakbhushanam bharai bilimpantyo vichintanchantyo bijahur vividai rasai. Perfectly meter. Swalankrita, well decorated. Naraha, men. Nadyaha, and woman. Gandha, with sandalwood paste. Shak, flower garlands. Bhushana, jewelry. Ambarai, and clothing. Bilimpantya, smearing. Abhishinchantya, and sprinkling. Bijaru, they play. Vividhai, various. Rasai, with liquids. Translation by the disciples of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Men and women all adorned with sandalwood paste, flower garlands, jewelry, and fine clothing, sported by smearing and sprinkling one another with various liquids. Text number 15. Tailagora Shagandhodha Haridra Sandra Kunkumai Pumbirlipta Pralin Pantyo Bijarur Barajoshita. Translation, and this one has a purport by the disciples of Srila Prabhupada. The men smear the courtesans with plentiful oil, yogurt, perfume, water, turmeric, and kumkuma powder. And the courtesans playfully smear the men with the same substances. Purport. Srila Prabhupada described these scenes as follows, quote, the men and women of Indraprastha, their bodies smeared with scent and floral oils, very nicely dressed in colorful garments and decorated with garlands and jewels and ornaments. They were all enjoying the ceremony, and they threw on each other's liquid substances like water, oil, milk, butter, and yogurt. Some even smeared these on each other's bodies. In this way, they were enjoying the occasion. The professional prostitutes were also engaged by jubilantly smearing these liquid substances on the body of the men, and the men reciprocated in the same way. All the liquid substances has been mixed with turmeric and saffron, and their color was was a lustrous yellow. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Ummilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Romapada Swami Iti Namine. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirveshesha Shunyavadi Paschatyade Shatarine Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaeva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So the description in the beginning of this chapter is about the conclusion of the great sacrifice that Maharaj Yudhisthira performed, the Rajasuya sacrifice. And it's explained that the end of the sacrifice, the final, um, the final part, and very important of this sacrifice, the sacrifice won't be complete if this part is missing. And it's called the Abba Brita celebration. So, at the end of a great sacrifice, actually is explained any of these great fire sacrifices, then the person who is performing the sacrificer, I think, and all the different paraphernalias and items that were used there to be purified in a holy river. So in the occasion, it is described that after finishing the great sacrifice, fire sacrifice, there was this great procession in which Maharaj Yudhisthira, along with all his queens and brothers and all the elders and kings and well-wishers, they will march in this great procession. It is explained that the kings will take in part of their army. So it was a massive procession that will go from the place of the sacrifice to the river Jamuna, who is close to the city of Indraprastha. And when they reach the river Jamuna, then will be this religious bath that happens. And this bath is performed by the priest or the you know the main priest of the whole sacrifice, and therefore everything becomes sanctified. In case there was any little mistake or whatever mistake happened during the sacrifice, everything gets concluded and perfectly purified. And so the great sacrifice is concluded. It is explained that that was the time, is often quoted in the Mahabharata, that Queen Draupadi, Maharaj Yudhisthira queen, her hair was sanctified by this sacrificial bath. And when Dushashan touched that hair, then that was the signal for the end of the whole Kuru dynasty. Because she purposely didn't, in general, the tradition of these great personalities, these great queens, was that sacrificial, that hair that was sanctified, she made it into a knot, and then it's covered always. So it's something um, very sacred. It's part of the purity and the elevation of these great personalities. So when Dushashan uh, touched that hair in this abusive form, then purposely she left the hair completely undone as a reminder to Maharaj Yudhisthira and the Pandavas of the insult. And she made this declaration that she will only when her hair is cleansed with the blood of Dushashan's heart, she won't she won't put the hair away. And it happens that when Bhima, ripped the heart of Dushashan in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and he brought, a handful of blood to Draupadi, and she washed the hair with the blood. Um, so anyway, this was the conclusion of the great sacrifice, this Abhabrita celebration, or this Abhabrita um, bath, sacred bath. So this is described right here. It's a major, you can imagine, just yesterday we were hearing about the magnificent, massive celebration. It's a celebration in which the whole world was being involved. And the city of Indraprastha became, the center of the world. And you have not only the inhabitants of Indraprastha, but also, from many of the whole region will be involved in that. So the celebration after this great sacrifice was very, very happy and magnificent. So after the sacrifice is finished, then there was this great jubilation. So these people just have these great expressions of jubilation and happiness that became into these exchanges of just happiness, and they started to sprinkle things on each other. It's like you can picture like um, the modern, traditional celebrations in India of Holi. Holi is also a celebration of joy, in which at that moment, in the moment of Holi, in the celebration of Holi, if you ever have the experience of being in India during Holi, is incredible. I was one time in Vrindavan during Holi, and the whole town, everything becomes just stop and becomes, this uh, celebration of joy of people just throwing colors at each other. Colors and scented water, colored water, and there's no discrimination. It's like all social rule or customs and things like that, they stop for that moment. There's no consideration. Oh, this is we are of this class. You are of this class. All these different regulations of social customs, they stop, and there just is an exchange of happiness. And in general, these celebrations is have not a mundane connotation or something that people does, like, in modern days where I grew up. There are some similar celebrations of Holi, but it's called Carnival. And during Carnival, we also throw water at each other, I don't know if they, um, you know, right here, the celebration usually is Halloween, which is even more, I mean, disconnected. But in Catholic countries, it's Carnival. And they, you know, everybody throws substances, water, scented water, colored water at each other, similar there. Um, but these traditions, basically, and in one sense, we see also the holy tradition, there with the passage of Kali Yuga, then it becomes degraded. It becomes a source. Rather, say holy is a celebration of the victory of goodness over evil. One of the occasion of holy the is when Hiranyakashipu ordered his sister Holika to burn Prahlad alive. So she have this special blanket that as she used it, fire cannot touch her. And she had her blanket on and took Prahlad on her lap and, you know, sit in a pile of, in a, how you say, a pyre, you know, like a big fire pyre. And by Lord Nrsingadeva's protection, um, Prahlad was untouched and Holika was burned to death. So the celebration of Holi is a celebration of goodness over evil. It's a celebration of Krishna protecting his devotees always. So there's this natural connection to our relationship with Krishna. Similar, the celebrations in other traditions like Carnival have some religious connotation, but it's all in the West. It's all lost. In India, there's still some connection, and you still have, Prabhupada say, you still have a hint of the Vedic culture when these things happen. But it becomes more a mundane exchange. So now we see here, this is a, a perfect kingdom. Maharaj Yudhisthira rule, Maharaj Yudhisthira kingdom. And we hear how this sacrifice was perfectly aligned with the purpose of pleasing Krishna. And, and was basically sort of driven by Maharaj Yudhisthira's pure purpose, pure devotional service. And therefore, all what was encompassed by this sacrifice, you can understand, it was very much in a very, very high level of consciousness. Now, the descriptions here, if we analyze it from an external point of view, one may think, oh well, the sacrifice just finished, and now it's a little bit of a chaotic thing in which, some questionable things may happen. There's prostitutes, then the description of prostitutes smearing things on men and men smearing things on the prostitutes, reciprocating. One thing, you know, from our modern perspective is like, that sounds more like a Brazilian carnival that, with a uh, with something to do with this very elevated, spiritually elevated sacrifice with these great sages and these great saintly kings and all. Krishna was present, demigods was present. Very what's the word when something is exalted like that? And to think of, okay, how this fit into that. Now, we cannot analyze the description of this great Vedic culture during a time in which Vedic culture was flourished, is perfectly established to what we have right now, the experience that we have right now. We have to understand it from the context of that culture in which everything was ruled by religious principles. So everything was organized like that. So the transgressions to go into something that is lower in nature was something that was very, very, very rare in Vedic culture. Very rare. In general, everything was very much controlled, very much regulated. So the whole society was perfectly organized, including the profession of a prostitute. And Prabhupada writes prostitute. The word that is used here is courtesans. So courtesans are considered, they're they're part of the entourage of a king. In general, kings, you hear that when there is a great marriage, then thousands, the kings give another king thousands of maidens that goes with, the the king and the queen, the newly married, and they become part of the entourage. So in general, these are courtesans, and um, they're part of the court, and they're sort of not necessarily marry, or they can have interactions, with different personalities of the courtesans. So they consider prostitutes. So, but all of this is regulated, and they follow very clear codes of conduct according to religious principles, according to the principles given in the Vedas. And the Vedas give a space for these different occupations, including prostitution. Prabhupada explains that. I'll read that in a moment. So we cannot try to understand from our experience of prostitutes, of festivals that start to, go into some loose type of exchanges between man and woman, in which there's marrying things and this and that. We cannot see it like that. We have to see it within the context of that culture that is presented in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And it is perfectly understandable, because at the end of this sacrifice, it is explained that everybody was extremely satisfied. Everybody, from the great sages to the regular people, were very much satisfied. There was only one person who was dissatisfied, and that was Duryodhana. That was explained because of his envy. But everybody else was very satisfied. So, what do you do when you conclude something so wonderful? There was these expressions of joy, and that's it. You can, and then in joy, in the bliss of joy, then these exchanges happen. And it happens that Maharaj Yudhisthira also was very pleased. We're going to hear tomorrow and the next days how Maharaj Yudhisthira and the queens of Maharaj Yudhisthira and even the queens of Lord Krishna and Krishna himself, they're participating in the fun. And they started to smear things on each other too. So it's something that is done in uh, in a mood of just the bliss of a spiritual of doing something in Krishna consciousness. Sometimes we see that in festivals that we have. I can think during the Radhastami that we throw petals at each other, and in that, I mean, it's a moment of bliss in this temple room that you can see everybody just like lost completely in a spiritual happiness. And the throwing of petals on each other, regardless, man, woman, this and that, everybody throws petals at each other. And so that's something that you can compare to this celebration that is happening here. And therefore something that is enjoyed even by Krishna and grace devotees. Krishna enjoys this type of also sports with the gopis. It's just part of, regular descriptions of Krishna sporting with the gopis in this way. So that's there. So it's important to have that into perspective. We cannot try, it's something that we constantly say, we cannot try to understand this um, Vedic culture with our experience, which own culture experience. These are type of enjoyment that is also described in the heavenly planets. In the heavenly planets, there's this type of, um, you know, happiness that happens, an enjoyment that happens in a much more higher level. But the understanding, okay, you hear about demigods also engaging very in something that may appear that is very, how you say, um, sensual, to having these very much sensual situations. And, but again, is the culture of the demigods is a culture of goodness. So goodness means that is very much regulated, that is controlled, that it follow codes of religion. So they don't cross those lines. However, because it's within the material world, although these things, as long as they're done within the codes of religion, they're okay. And when you do things in the mode of goodness, it is explained that it's enlightening, that it actually nourishes knowledge and nourishes the consciousness and elevates the consciousness. That's what the mode of goodness do. But because the mode of goodness is still a material mode, there is the danger of degradation. So therefore, you have to be very much monitor by pure devotees, Mahajanas. Those Mahajans, they show by example and then people follow. So you have to be monitored. In the case of Indraprastha and all this celebration, this is all monitored by Maharaj Yudhisthira, who is a perfected being, is a perfect devotee. So things don't go further. But but there's always a danger, and we see in the heavenly planets, we hear many times, say, Manigriva and Nalakuvara, they were caught drunk, naked, sporting with girls in a lake, and which is, part of the sensual pleasures that they have in the heavenly planets. So one think, okay, drinking is not so good. It's supposed to be a degrading thing. Yes. And because of that, they were cursed by Narada. They degraded themselves. So when Narada showed up, then they were so intoxicated that they didn't cover themselves. All the women that were sporting with them, they immediately covered themselves and went away. So um, they they were aware of the codes, but these two were not because of being intoxicated and for they down into the earth, degraded. They took birth as trees by the course of Narada. They were free by Krishna, Narada's mercy. But so this danger is there. So it's something also to keep in mind. Um, so these celebrations, we can understand they were embraced, accepted, and encouraged by Krishna and Maharaj Yudhisthira. And as expressions of joy, as expression of a celebration of this most auspicious occasion that we have. Imagine having a perfect devotee as a ruler of the world. So everything is perfect. And it is explained later, the kingdom of Maharaj Yudhisthira, when he was established, the emperor of the world, later after the battlefield of Kurukshetra, how it was such a perfect kingdom. Perfect. Now, when we touch about the subject matter of prostitution, um, we'll start with the narrations. There's so many reference in the Vedas about prostitutes as a accepted type of occupation, that it have a place in society. Even in the realms of the demigods, the famous apsaras are considered prostitutes. The apsaras were expert. There's the Gandharvas and the apsaras. They were always present in all great gatherings of the demigods, because they were expert musicians and expert dancers, expert artists. And most famous apsaras, and no ordinary, understand, the most famous one was three of them are mentioned constantly, and two of them are very much present throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam. And they're narrated in the different, Puranas and the Itihasas like the Mahabharata and the Ramayana. Menaka, Urvashi, and Ramba. These are Menaka. Her appearance was from the churning of the Milk Ocean. So she appears as the original Apsara, most beautiful of them. And so, not ordinary personalities. In fact, Menaka, so the Apsaras were like the courtesans in the kingdom of heaven, Lord Indra. And Lord Indra would send them with the mission of entice any personality who was, through the performance of austerities, was gaining great mystic powers. So Indra was nervous that they may sort of, as they gain power, they may challenge his position as Indra. So he will consistently, throughout, historically, he will send these apsaras to entice um, sages. So Meneka was one of them and was, among the principal apsaras, the original apsaras. So famously, Meneka was sent to disturb the austerities of Vishwamitra Muni. And she was successful. Vishwamitra Muni became enticed. And in their union, they have this very important lady as their daughter. Her name was Shakuntala. And Shakuntala became the mother of Bharat Maharaj, who became the famous um, king of the earth, by which this earth actually is named Bharat Varsha, the land of Bharat. And so Menaka and Vishwamitra Muni. So Menaka, yeah, very famous Apsara who acts, as prostitutes. The other one was Urvashi, similar thing. Urvashi was sent to disturb, different sages and things like that. Successfully done. Now, Urvashi also has a very special appearance because Urvashi um, took appear from the lap of Narayan Rishis. Imagine. So the story goes like this. The great twin sages, Narayan, they were performing austerities. Actually, if you're planning to go to the Yatra of His Holiness Rupa Swami this year to Badrinath, that's the place where Narayan Rishi are situated. I think Badrinath or Rishikesh, one of those places. Well, we're going to visit the place of Narayan Rishi. And they were performing austerities, and Indra, similar, became threatened. So he sent a whole bunch of um, apsaras to entice along with Cupid. So Cupid went with his wife, Rati, and a whole bunch of Indra's apsaras. And they were doing their dance and tinkling and, the dancing with balls, like that. I mean, the whole, and Cupid, doing his thing and pulling his arrows. And then to trying to disturb Narayan Rishis. Narayan slapped his thigh, and with the slap appears this most beautiful uh, young woman. That her beauty was so much that all the Apsaras became ashamed and they realized that they were doing something, you know, not nice, something evil. And they left. And so, in this way, with the appearance of this young girl who was Urvashi, then he defeated Cupid and all the Apsaras and Indra. And then they assure Indra, you don't have to worry about us. We have no interest in the kingdom of heaven. And as a matter of fact, we're going to give you this Apsara, the most magnificent and beautiful Apsara, Urvashi. So she became part of Lord Indra's, entourage, favorite of Lord Indra. So he will sometimes send her too to disturb sages. And then Urvashi, she, the Bhagavatam narrates in the ninth canto about Urvashi's connection with the grandsire of the dynasty of the moon, in which the whole Kuru dynasty and the Yadu dynasty appear. And his name was Pururava. Pururava. King Pururava, connected with Urvashi. And the reason is because Urvashi, in one of those missions, she was cursed by sage Vasishta. I can remember two sages actually cursed her that she shouldn't be in heaven. She should be, in earth, because she was doing these disturbances. So she connected with the king of this great king Pururava, and they, it's a whole narration. It's in the Bhagavatam. At the end, she left him. Under some conditions, she left him, and nevertheless, she's she was the mother of some of the kings that gave birth to the lunar dynasty, in which Lord Krishna appeared, the Pandavas appear, all that. So these are, examples of these personalities who were part of the whole structure that is there in the heavenly planets, and also similarly here in the Vedic structure, they have a part as courtesans, as concubines, prostitutes. They have different, there's a there's a purpose. And this is what Prabhupada say about them. Oh, there's another one that I was going to say, famous one, Ramba. Ramba was also sent by Krishna to disturb, I can't remember the sage. Let me see if I can find here. Which sage she went to disturb. Yeah, she went to disturb Vishwamitra. Yes, but this time, because Vishwamitra, after falling with Menaka, after so many thousands of years, enjoying with Menaka, he just went, oh my God, what did I do? He started again his austerities. And as he was advancing his austerities, Indra again sent another one. This time he sent Ramba. But Vishwamitra this time didn't fall for that. And he cursed Ramba to become a rock. And remember, Lord Ramachandra touched the rock with his lotus feet, and then she regained her, her celestial body. So these are the Apsaras. the celestial prostitutes. Now, Prabhupada described uh, prostitutes like this, of, prostitution. Because in the Bhagavatam it's described that even even in Dwarka, the city of Lord Krishna, who is overseen by Lord Krishna, then there is this description as Lord Krishna arrives back to Dwarka after the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and he went, to Hastinapura to establish a Maharaj Yudhisthira, and then he left Hastinapuri and then goes back to Dwarka, and now the people of Dwarka is receiving him, and it's described. This is from the Srimad Bhagavatam, the first canto, chapter 9, no, chapter 9, I think, yes. At the same time, many hundreds of well-known prostitutes began to proceed on various vehicles. They were all very eager to meet the Lord, and their beautiful faces were decorated with dazzling earrings, which enhanced the beauty of their foreheads. So, pretty much accepted, as, and they're very much all the prostitutes that were devotees of Lord Krishna. So Prabhupada writes, we may not hate even prostitutes if they are devotees of the Lord. Even today, there are many prostitutes in great cities in India who are sincere devotees of the Lord. By tricks of chance, one may be obliged to adopt a profession which is not very adorable in society, but that does not hamper one in executing devotional service to the Lord. Devotional service to the Lord is uncheckable in all circumstances. It is understood herewith that even in those days, about 5,000 years ago, there were prostitutes in the city of Dwarka, where Lord Krishna resided. This means that prostitutes are necessary citizens for the proper upkeep of society. The government opens wine shops, but this does not mean that the government encourages. Where are we? That the government encourages the drinking of wine. The idea is that there is a class of men who will drink at any cost, and it has to be experienced that prohibition in great cities encourage illicit smuggling of wine. Similarly, men who are not satisfied at home require such concessions. And if there is no prostitute, then such low men will induce others into prostitution. It is better that prostitutes be available in the marketplace so that the sanctity of society can be maintained. It is better to maintain a class of prostitutes that encourage prostitutes within society. The real reformation is to enlighten all people to become devotees of the Lord, and that will check all kinds of deteriorating factors of life. So, they have a position. And in fact, also throughout the narrations of the Bhagavatam, there's descriptions of, there's few descriptions in the Srimad Bhagavatam of prostitutes. There's few that describe how these prostitutes help the person who were addicted to this, type of sensual degrading acts to elevate themselves to Krishna consciousness. And one is narrated by Lord Krishna, and the other one doesn't appear in the Bhagavatam, but it's by the acharyas. They tell us, it's a much later, it's a modern acharya. But the one that is described in the Bhagavatam is the story of Pingala. In the 11th canto, Lord Krishna tells Uddhava the story of Pingala, which is a prostitute that was a great devotee and and was seen as one of the 24 gurus of the Avanti Brahmana. The story of the Avanti Brahmana is narrated by Lord Krishna to Uddhava. And it's very, very beautiful. So, this Pingala prostitute is glorified as someone who elevated himself to perfection in Krishna consciousness, even though she was a prostitute, just like Srila Prabhupada said. The other one that is narrated in our history of the Gaudiya Vaishnava history is the history of Chintamani, the prostitute Chintamani, who helped Bhima Mangala Thakur, who is a great devotee, pure devotee, in the line of the Rudra Sampradaya. It's not in our disciplic line, but it's a great Vaishnava following in the Sampradaya of Vishnu Swami, which is a Rudra Sampradaya. And Bhima Mangala Thakur was a pure Brahmana, or was a Brahmana, a very wealthy Brahmana in South India, but he became attached to this prostitute. And Chintamani, the prostitute, was able to bring to him again to lead him to the proper purpose of life, to his connecting with Krishna. So after Chintamani preached to Bhimamangala Thakur, then he left from Vrindavan and he became this great, great, great pure devotee. And the other history in the Bhagavatam that goes the other way, in which the prostitute degraded someone. So the the danger is there. Is the story of Ajamil. So Ajamil became involved with a prostitute, and by that association, he became very, very degraded. And so, the line can be crossed. So one have to be careful. And again, the monitoring fact is the presence of a pure devotee overseeing and making sure that religious principles are followed. I stop here. Any comments or questions?
So, thank you for that, Prabhu. Nice class on prostitution.
Yes.
um, but I was thinking, when I was coming up, it was always prostitutes around. Always,
Even here
always.
in the temple, in the surrounding, up
Yeah.
to now you don't see them
And,
so much, but you used to see them. You come to the temple in the morning,
yeah.
in Mongol Arctic, and they were there, sitting in the corner there, walking.
So, it's interesting to understand that on the level that you're talking about, that they serve a purpose, and that purpose is it's a degrading thing, but it can be liberating too. So I always knew it was something, that special about it because so many people, not just men, but men and women are so attracted, and it's so hundreds and hundreds of them all over the world. You know what I'm saying? And but I just to understand that for us, that it's not meant for us, on our level. that we on now. You know, it's much, I don't think it would help, as far as being a part of my life at the point I'm at now. I don't know, but as far as I can see, like you said, they have a purpose. So um, that purpose is, you know, it's liberating for them because it's their duty. It's their duty to be in that position. So, you know, I think that's where it is. What you think? Thank you, Prabhu. They, you have anything much to say?
Uh, so, in the examples you were giving of the three different prostitutes or apsaras, courtesans who were sent to the earthly realm, it's based on a particular motive on the demigod ruler to disrupt something that was, I guess, a sage practicing austerity, which means that the sage was increasing in power, so therefore the sage was possibly threatening to the demigod ruler or their position. So you could say that that's also not a perfect motive on the part of the demigod ruler, and utilizing an apsara to serve that purpose. I suppose it ties in with the apsara having that kind of role, but it also doesn't reflect so well on the demigod ruler.